Hey, what's up, viewers? Patrick from Bob versus Only, back in this episode number 4 and number 5 of A Broken Heart Week on Bob versus of the day. And yesterday's verse came out of Hebrews 13, verse 5, and it says, "Keep your lives free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" And today's verse comes out of Isaiah 57, verse 15, and it says, "For this is what the high and exalted one says, He who lives forever, whose name is holy, I live in a high and holy place, but also with the one who is contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite." And that's what that verse means. Let's get into it. It's time for the Royal Rangers recap. And we are currently talking about the book of Romans. And these are we're looking at the 7 keys to Romans. The first one we went over was who was Paul. The second one is why did Paul write Romans. And the one we went over yesterday was the questions about God. Here are the notes. What about the people of Israel? Recalled Gentile question. Why has Israel not believed its own Messiah? God chose Israel as his people, but has he now changed his mind and rejected them? For Paul, deeper issue is whether God is reliable/faithful. And the answer is yes. God's unchanging purpose. What if some were unfaithful? Does their faithfulness nullify the faithfulness of God? By no means. In Romans chapter 3, verses 3 through 4, it says, "What if some were unfaithful? Will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true, and every human being a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak, and prevail when you judge." I ask then, has God rejected his people? By no means. In Romans chapter 11, verse 1, it says, "I ask then, did God reject his people? By no means. I am an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham, from the tribe of Benjamin. All Israel will be saved." Also in Romans 11, in verse 26, it says, "And in this way all Israel will be saved, as it is written, The deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godlessness away from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins." Paul defends God's faithfulness. The good news of Jesus does not mean God has changed his mind about Israel. It means the fulfillment of his purpose. Paul describes this faithfulness of God as the righteousness of God. In Romans 1, 6 through 17, it says, For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith. For faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. God's righteousness equals deliverance, salvation, and vindication. Going into the Old Testament, starting with chapter 12 of 1 Samuel and verse 7, it says, "Now then, stand here, because I am going to confront you with evidence before the Lord, as to all the righteous acts performed by the Lord for you and your ancestors. In the book of Isaiah, in chapter 46, verses 12 through 13, it says, "Listen to me, you stubborn-hearted, you who are now far from my righteousness. I am bringing my righteousness near. It is not far away, and my salvation will not be delayed. I will grant salvation to Zion, my splendor to Israel." These next two verses come from the book of Micah, starting with Micah chapter 6, verses 4 through 5, and it says, "I brought you up out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. My people remember what Balak, king of Moab, plotted, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered. Remember your journey from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord." Micah 7, verse 9 says, "Because I have sinned against him, I will bear the Lord's wrath until he pleads my case and upholds my cause. He will bring me out into the light." The good news is, in Messiah Jesus, God has fulfilled his covenant promises to Abraham and Israel in Messiah Jesus. He has set his people right with him forever. God has not changed his mind, but fulfilled it. He is not unfaithful, but faithful. Thus Paul writes to Jews and Gentiles, "Therefore, welcome one another, as Christ has welcomed you, for the glory of God. For I tell you that Christ became a servant to the circumcised to show God's truthfulness, in order to confirm the promises given to the patriarchs, and in order that the Gentiles might glorify God for his mercy." That is the last note. And that's all for the verse portion. And the verse to leave you today is Matthew 13, verse 44, and it says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field." And that's going to do for the video. Thanks for watching. And until next time again, viewers, in every way, God's way is always the best way.